3 years ago, Earth went through a certain change and nearly all animals and plants evolved into something bizarre. Those animals turned treacherous and started to ambush humans. In order to bring peace and harmony on Earth, humans decide to control those monsters. And those awakened humans are called monster trainers. Now the present time is shown where a scene from a regular school is shown where teacher Murong teaches her class about plant and animal evolution. When the bell rings, the teacher calls it a day and informs the class that the next day is an exam for animal taming, so everyone should be prepared for it. Then at the market, a young boy is shown who says that he's an 18-year-old named Gao Peng, who's a student at Chang'an Third High School and dreams about being a monster trainer one day. Currently, he's stuck on an issue. He's been saying some weird interfaces popping up in front of him. Gao thinks that maybe he's imagining things due to immense stress. With all those things in his mind, Gao heads towards his home. Some interfaces pop up from behind him and are unread by Gao. However, one of the interfaces says that Gao has been selected as a host for binding the monster evolution system, and the system can help him identify the relevant information about the monster. The interface advises Gao to make good use of it. And an interface pops up that gives him information about the spider. The name is a striped gray disc monster of level 3, whose weakness is fire. However, Gao ignores that interface as well, but by looking at the spider he thinks that this creature couldn't be an illusion, as he remembers that this spider is tended by Grandma Chen, and teacher Murong once told him that these spiders are gentle creatures. Suddenly the spider attacks Gao, and while defending himself Gao thinks that the creature is not at all gentle. Gao then runs up to the stairs and starts shrieking in terror that Gran Chen, "Your spider is biting everyone." Then the spider shoots a web at Gao, but Gao has a close escape. The spider then approaches Gao by climbing the walls. This intimidates Gao, who thinks the spider is too fast for him. Then suddenly the same interface pops up in front of Gao, in which it is mentioned that the spider's weakness is fire. Then takes out a lighter from his pocket and lights it. He then puts fire to the spider and the spider starts burning. But the fire is too small for the gigantic creature, so it straightens up and begins to attack Gao again. A frantic Gao starts to flee and says to himself that just one more floor to go and then he'll be home. As soon as Gao reaches his apartment door, the spider tries to pounce on him. Suddenly Gao shouts aloud, "Purple!" Then the apartment door flings open and a larger monster appears on the door, which flings the spider far away. A triumphant Gao smirks at the spider and says, "How about one more round?" The spider is so scared of Gao's pet monster that it runs for its life. Gao's monster then starts complaining to him that where he was for so long, as it's feeling so hungry. Gao's able to communicate with the monster through a mind link. The monster says that it would have starved to death if Gao didn't come. Some information about the evolved monsters is then given. Every monster has two forms, combat form and non-combat form. In the non-combat form, a monster decreases in size and power and also slowly heals from any light injuries. Gao agrees to fix something for Daisy and asks it to put his school bag in the cupboard. Gao then fixes a nutritional lunch professionally and serves it to Daisy. Suddenly an interface about another monster pops up in front of him. The monster's name is a purple-backed yellow-clawed centipede of level 5. The weakness is an electric flame. Then an instruction is given to promote it from an ordinary level to an excellent grade monster. One more evolve fact is given. Monsters are usually divided into 3 levels: ordinary quality, elite quality, and perfect quality. The higher the quality of a monster, the more powerful it would be. Gao then hugs Daisy and vows that he would promote it to the elite quality. Gao then checks out the requirements for the upgradation. A list of ingredients pop up in front of him. The first one is the shade glass. Gao thinks that the shade grass is easily available. The second one is thunderstruck wood, which would also be available after spending some money. However, the third ingredient, which is the lightning core crystal, is almost impossible to obtain. And also Gao figures out that the crystal core will cost around 10 credits, which is very expensive. 3 years ago, 2 types of currency were introduced: union currency and credit. Credit is a premium currency, and around $10,000 is equal to 1 credit coin. Gao calculates that after his parents pass away in an accident, the government gave him a compensation of 20 credits, out of which 11 credits remain. Gao thinks those are enough to buy the 2 materials. Daisy finishes his food and demands more. Gao irritatingly points out that Daisy is a centipede, and how much he could devour. Daisy furiously chants food. Food. Gao gives in and submits his own food to Daisy as well. Daisy feels that promoting Daisy would be painstaking, however, if the information provided by the interfaces is authentic, then he could definitely become a monster trainer, as the requirements for a monster's rank upgradation have always been a mystery for the monster trainers. Gao remembers teacher Murong announcing the monster breeders test the next day. However, he doesn't know the deadline for registration. He checks through his mobile and finds out that only 3 minutes are left to register. Gao swiftly fills out the details and clicks the yes button. However, a message appears that the system is busy, so Gao must wait. After a few seconds, Gao's successfully registered for the test and he must report to his school at 9 a.m. for the test. Early in the morning, Gao raps at somebody's apartment. The door is opened by a girl named Tang. Tang is his neighbor's sister. Gao and Tang exchange greetings and the latter asks him what brings him to her apartment so early. Gao then asks a favor from Tang since he's going for the monster's training exam. So can she babysit Daisy for a few days? Tang agrees to do so and advises him to concentrate on his exam. Gao is full of gratitude for Tang and is relieved that now he could finally concentrate on his exam. He promises Tang that he would give her a treat as soon as he returns. After Gao's departure, Tang wonders how come Gao Peng got so unlucky getting stuck with a creature who's ordinary and not even cute. Tang adds that the old man would be so angry when would hear about Daisy. She then brings Daisy to her apartment and calls old man. She then tells the old man that she wants to tell him something important only if he wouldn't lose his temper. Tang reveals that Gao Peng has an ordinary quality, purple-backed yellow-clawed centipede. The old man growls on the phone that ordinary quality familiars are very hard to train and are almost useless. Didn't Gao ask Tang before having it? Tang says that Gao is as obstinate as the old man. His grandfather, the familiar Daisy, actually belonged to the old man's daughter and son-in-law. After their death, Gao took care of Daisy. Tang then asks him about his business affairs and also tells him that it's better to replace disobedient people with faithful ones. While talking, Tang looks outside and finds Gao running late for his test. She adds that the place doesn't lack faithful and talented people, but she tells him to do it his way and she would stop intervening. Tang assures the old man that he should stop worrying about Gao, as she would take good care of him. She then disconnects the phone. The scene shifts to a tall building where an aged man is seen. He's the same old man to whom Tang was talking earlier. A secretary enters and the chairman orders her to notify the experimental department that if they're useless to him after 5 months, then they would have no reason to exist. He also orders her to tell Lai Hai to settle the issue on King Hai Branch within 7 months because he doesn't have time to waste on others. The assistant leaves immediately. The old man then starts surfing Gao's childhood photos on his mobile phone and says that after a year everything would be back to normal, and then he would meet his grandson again. The scene shifts outside the Chang'an City Monster Breeder building, where there is a huge crowd of students waiting to give the test. Gao feels that monster breeding is everybody's favorite since everyone has come out to give the test. Soon Gao's 2 friends, Lai Zigong and Lai Hongdu, call out to him. Gao is really happy to see them. They're here with their mom, who's here to give the exam. This time she may pass. Gao then drops the bomb that he's here to give the exam to everyone's surprise. But their mom encourages him that youngsters should have ambition. And who knows, Chang'an City might get their youngest monster breeder that day. A gangster-type person appears with his 2 guards and mocks when the monster breeders drop their standards so low that they are in dire need for the youngest monster breeder in Chang'an. However, Gao coolly retorts to him that if verbal insults were criteria for the exam, he's pretty sure the gangster would be a high-class breeder then. The guy threatens Gao and leaves. Zigong's mom tells him that the gangster is Wang's corporation's young master, Wang Shu, who has failed the test 4 times in a row. Zigong replies that maybe Wang Shu was threatened by the youth of Gao. Soon the doors to the test open and a person announces the beginning of the test and orders the students to enter the building in an orderly way. The scene shifts toward the interior of the breeder building and Feng Su, chief examiner of the monster breeding division, welcomes all the students. He elaborates that the test is divided into 2 parts, written and practical. Firstly, the students have to go through the written test, where they would be shown 3 videos regarding the monsters. In order to pass, the students have to describe the monsters accurately. The screen is turned on and the first video is played, and in which a large, fish-like creature is shown swimming in the ocean. After the clip is shown, Feng Su announces that the students have 20 minutes to accurately describe the monster. Most of the students think frantically as they have never heard, let alone seen, the monster before. The students murmur among each other, which forces Feng Su to give them a shut-up call and warn them that those who will try to cheat will be severely penalized and maybe be thrown out of the exam. The students are apprehensive and stop chattering. Meanwhile, the gangster guy is grinning as he thinks that the exam is harder than last year. However, he had already acquired the questions beforehand, so he knows all the answers. Gao is also not all worried because as soon as the video ends, an invisible interface appears in front of Gao displaying the details of the monster. Gao accurately copies the details into his exam sheet. The monster's name is Storm Dolphin, and he likes sunbathing, soft music, shrimps, and squids. However, he fears dark attribute monster attacks and hates messy sound waves. The second video clip is shown, in which a monkey creature is shown having horns on his head. An interface pops up in front of Gao showing the details that the monster's name is Strong Monkey, who likes eating bananas and climbing trees, fears poison attributes and monster attacks, and has a temperamental attitude and can be easily agitated. In the last video clip is shown and a grasshopper-like creature is shown. The monster's name is Sharp Mantis, who is brave and likes to fight. It is a carnivore and loves to eat bugs. It fears fire attribute attacks. Gao finishes up his test in time. The examiner collects all the test papers from the students. After an hour, the test results are out and Feng announces the names of the qualified students who had made mistakes here and there. However, Gao's name is not announced. Feng encourages the remaining students to try for the test next time. Even Gao is shocked because he was very much confident about his test, which means that the interface gave him the wrong information. Suddenly, Feng Su inquires about Gao Peng. When Gao Peng stands up, Feng Su applauds and says that he had never thought a young man like Gao could score so amazingly in the test. Feng adds that age is just a number, as Gao's potential is endless and he may become the youngest monster breeder of Chang'an City. Now Feng Su takes all the qualified students to a hall. Feng Su then announces that now they would begin the practical test. Gao stares in wonder and thinks what a big place that was. Feng says that the test is very simple. The rooms behind him contain monsters that the association has provided. In order to pass the test, the students have to increase their grades within 1 week, and to do that they have been provided all the materials and the association has covered all the costs incurred during the week. However, if you fail to increase the monster's grade, then you have to pay the used item's market price. Also, they could use the materials to a limit, and if the limits are increased, they could fail the test. Then an examiner named Lai Jin appears, who's Chang'an City Monster Breeder Branch Examiner, and announces that all students must take their rooms through a draw. Each student picks up a paper card from a box. Gao is a little worried because he thinks that by picking a random card, it's impossible to guess what monster he'll end up with. He ponders that it's true that getting a monster breeding certificate is very difficult. Meanwhile, the gangster guy smirks at Gao that he'll get him this time. It seems that he had planned something nasty for Gao. Soon it's Gao's turn to pick up a room card. It could be seen that an invisible creature is already present in the box and picks up a card for Gao. This is all a setup. Gao gets room number 10. Gao's friend's mother has also qualified for the written test this time, and she has acquired room number 6. Feng announces that all students stand by their assigned rooms as the exam is about to begin. Soon a man named Zhu Yuan appears and informs Gao that if he needs anything, he's just a call away. Gao soon opens the door and enters the room. Gao sees that an unidentified monster has been encaged. Soon an interface appears in front of Gao, which displays that the monster's name is Red River Ape. The current condition of the monster is that it is diseased and dispirited. Also, its weakness is the yin attribute. Gao asks Yuan what had actually happened to the ape. Yuan answers that many experiments have been performed on that ape, and its body is filled with abandoned and conflicting energy. The ape was supposed to be eliminated. However, the association had no other monsters for the students to work on. Yuna then leaves Gao's send and confronts Lai Jin that when they allot of monsters, how come the red ape was allotted to one of the students? Lai asks Yuan not to worry and let things be as they are. Lai then calls the gangster guy named Mr. Wang and assures him that everything is going according to their plan. He gives his word to Mr. Wang that Gao won't be able to pass the test. Yuan thinks that promoting Red Ape is nearly impossible. Yuan is not sure how Gao would be able to accomplish the task. Yuan then offers Gao that if he wants, he could help him submit a special request to keep the written score and apply for the practical test the next time. However, Gao says that still he would like to go with the task. Gao decides to release the red monster from the prison. When the monster sees Gao, its memories return when some random guys say after checking the ape that the material and dosage used for culture medication are all perfect. So why it is not recovering? Maybe it's completely hopeless and useless to recover. The red ape starts howling and crying in distress. Gao then pets his head to calm him down and assures it not to worry. He would definitely help him increase his grade. Gao checks out the interface about the materials required to upgrade the monster. Gao finds out that there are 2 ways to the procedure. One is the normal way in which a lot of new materials would be required. However, the risk factor is low. The next one is advanced evolution, in which fewer materials are required but the risk factor is high. However, Gao chooses the second method because if he fails, then he has to pay the low material price, so he decides to take the risk. As soon as he clicks the advanced evolution option, a list of materials display in front of him. Gao writes them down and gives the list to Yuan. The materials required are black candle grass, elite ghoul attributed core crystal, luminous powder, skull mushrooms, and withering grass. However, Yuan is a little skeptical about the materials as he thinks that they are way too toxic. Is Gao trying to kill the monster or evolve it? However, Gao explains that in order to treat a serious condition, a risky treatment is required. Yuan shouldn't worry. He knows what he's doing. Gao then closes the door after Yuan leaves. However, Yuan is thinking that Guan achieved the highest score on written exams. Maybe he's also among those guys who just have theoretical knowledge. 3 days pass by, and it could be seen that the candidate assigned room number 2 has been eliminated from the exam because his body has suffered severe burns. However, he's still chanting to give him one more chance, as he's still able to evolve the monster. After a while, it could be seen that the candidate of room number 7 is shouting in frustration. How come her monster is not evolving as she had tried everything? The candidate of room number 8 is so frustrated that he tries to pull his hair out of his scalp, and says that he has tried everything but the monster is still unaffected. Then the red ape of room number 10 is shown, who still hasn't evolved, but it's looking happy and hearty. However, Gao checks that feeding it with black candle grass has acted as a stimulant and has healed its minor injuries and scratches. Also, its mental and physical state is temporarily at its peak. The ghoul crystal core has also started to show its effect. So now all Gao has to do is soak the monster in the sulfuric acid mixture. Gao then takes out the key given to him by Yuan, who has warned him that although the monsters provided by the association are not on the offensive side, however, the red ape has been exposed to many toxic materials and energy, so while releasing him, Guy should be careful. Now Gao is a little apprehensive. However, he says to himself that at this stage he cannot back off. Gao then approaches the red ape and tells it that it is about to be released, however it has to remain pacified. As soon as the cage door is opened, the ape runs towards Gao and hugs him dearly. Gao is also pleased and then shifts the curtain at the back of the room. Behind the curtains is a bathtub filled with some blue solution. However, the ape is a little intimidated by the sight, so it pulls out some of his hair and places it in the tub. The hair starts to burn and the ape shakes his head so that it won't dip in the tub. Gao smiles and assures ape to trust him and it could do it. As soon as the ape starts dipping in the bathtub, its body releases black smoke and the whole room is filled with it. The fire sensor in the room starts buzzing. The officer sitting in the headquarters alerts everybody that the fire alarm of room 10 has been activated, and the fire must be put out immediately. Swiftly, Yuan and 2 other officers rush toward room 10 carrying fire extinguishers. All are thinking that the young man in room 10 made a mistake and accidentally started the fire. Mr. Wang is elated because he thinks finally his money paid off and Lai Jin did a great job. The officers break the room's door and find that the whole room is filled with black smoke. However, one of the officers says that there is no fire, only smoke. Gao inquires Yuna why they're here. Yuan replies that the room's fire alarm got activated. Gao apologizes and says that he got so busy with his work that he didn't pay attention to that. The room is thoroughly checked, and since everything is okay, so the alarm is turned off and the officers leave the room. Soon Feng Su comes inside room number 10 and inquires about what's going on. Some of the candidates standing outside are mocking and smirking about Gao's inexperience. Even Mr. Wang checks out and sees that since there is no monster, the experiment has definitely failed. Soon a monster comes out of the bathtub and is so intimidating that all candidates shriek in terror. The monster is staring at Gao. Even Feng Su, Lai Jin and Yuan are stunned to see the magnificent ape. Lai Jin is unable to believe his eyes while Yuan is really happy for Gao. An interface pops up in front of Gao, stating that the red ape has completely evolved and all its details are shown. The name of the monster is Skull Ghoul Ape of level 11 and its weakness is light. Gao lauds the system for being so powerful and accurate. Gao thinks that this was just a small test of its capabilities. However, in the future, he would evolve many monsters with his help. Excitedly, Gao checks out the evolved monster and thinks after evolution, the size of the monster's body has increased tremendously. The gas that is surrounding its bones is actually solid. Also, the bones look like they're made up of metal. Li Jin explains to Feng Su that the monster that has evolved is of a new type and has never evolved before. However, Feng Su comments that who is more efficient, the monster or the monster breeder. Feng then lauds the efforts of Gao. Gao then heads towards Feng, but the ape stops him and doesn't want him to leave it. However, Gao assures him not to worry, as he's not leaving his side. Meanwhile, Lai Jin is thinking that the monsters that are successfully evolved are usually awarded to the staff members of best ethics, so this monster must be awarded to him only. However, Feng notices that the monster is very attached to Gao, so he announces that the monster would be awarded to Gao Peng, shocking both Lai Jin and Yuan. Feng Su announces that the monster must be awarded to Gao because the monster is really attached to him. However, Gao is a little shocked and somewhat apprehensive about keeping the monster. However, Feng adds that the monster is of a different species and has been perfectly evolved, so there's no harm if Gao is keeping it. He then confirms with Gao whether he wants to keep the monster or not. Gao ponders on the offer that originally the monster was of normal grade. Once it is of perfect grade, all he has to do is to wait for it to hit level 20. Then it'll immediately be upgraded to a commander tier monster, although it still seems like a commander tier 1. Soon Yuan appears from his behind and says that why Gao is thinking too much since the monster is also ready to go with Gao. However, Lai Jin interferes and says that Feng Su's decision is against the association. As successfully evolved monsters are usually awarded to staff members of best ethics, this monster has been experimented on 6 times before, and now it is perfectly evolved, so it's not wise to give it away like this. Mr. Wang chips and says that this monster must be eliminated, as to how can a child like Gao evolve into a monster like that. Lin Jin adds that evolving a monster is not a piece of cake that could be done by a mere schoolboy, especially Gao, who has no experience of evolution. Wang blames Gao for cheating. Feng Su interrupts and asks Wang to elaborate on cheating. However, Lai Jin covers up for Wang and says in a neutral tone that Wang doesn't mean that. It's just that the practical test was very difficult and a monster breeder of beginner level couldn't have completed it accurately. Lai Jin supposes that maybe Gao coincidentally learned some methods somewhere and healed the monster accidentally. Feng Su attacks Lai Jin by saying that what does he mean that the results are calculated inaccurately. Lai Jin says that not that, since the result is a success, so he must be awarded a certificate for that, but not the monster itself. Otherwise, the association's equity would be questioned and the monster must follow the association's tradition. When Feng Su hears this, he laughs loudly and refers to Gao that in Chang'an, some master monster breeders are completely clueless and they still think they're on top of the world. He then asks Gao to show them some of his skills, so that those arrogant masters must know that no matter how strong you are, there is someone stronger. However, Gao says that he just came here to acquire a certificate, but was dragged into this terrible mess. He then refers to both Lai Jin and Wang that since they were not able to evolve the monster, this doesn't mean that Gao is too young or inexperienced to evolve it. And how can Wang prove that Gao has cheated? Gao explains further that since the word river is a part of the name Red River Ape, doesn't mean that it has something to do with water. Its name comes from the Red River, which runs next to their habitat. However, due to misjudgment, the experimenters fed him a lot of water type and yin type ingredients. However, the poor creature's weakness is the yin attribute. Gao confronts them that if they didn't know that simple thing, then their whole life experience is a mere failure. However, Wang confronts him back that how come Yin's attribute is the red ape's weakness, although everyone knows that their weakness is wood. Feng Su corrects him that although the red apes fear the wood attribute, however their weakness is yin attribute only. This was the testing point. Gao explains that for 3 days he gave the creature black candle grass so that its body and soul could recover strength. Then he gave it a combination of undead and ghoul materials along with ghoul-type monster core crystal as a stimulant. Gao advises that there's nothing worth hiding about the materials. However, one must be careful while experimenting with them, because the most crucial and critical part of this procedure lies in the amount and the order of the materials used. However, if one goes blindly following that order and keeps on experimenting on monsters, then that could be very dangerous. Feng Su claps and lauds graciously at Gao and says that by looking at him it seems that the new generation is quite promising. Feng Su comments that this junior level certificate is not at all appropriate for Gao, who deserves an intermediate monster breeder certificate. However, Feng Su cannot award him the latter one, and for that, he has to go to the Yanjing headquarters and pass their assessment. Gao expresses his gratitude towards Feng Su. Then Feng Su roars at Lai Jin and Wang that what did they think he wouldn't know about their misdoings. He had clearly instructed Lai Jin that the red ape wouldn't be kept in the test and would be strictly eliminated. So how come it was kept as the subject? Yuan then spill the beans that it was all Lai Jin's doings. Lai Jin also reveals that Wang was behind all this because he had tipped Lai Jin, and all evidence about that has been found. Feng Su announces that Wang has been prohibited from taking the monster's breeding test for the next 3 years and has been stripped of his test qualification. Meanwhile, examiner Lai gets fired from the association, never to be hired again in any other monster breeding association. Feng Su then offers for Gao to join him for a drink at his office. Gao is standing at the bus stop, holding an intermediate certificate. This shows that after clearing the junior level exam, he managed to clear the intermediate exam as well. Gao has named his monster Dummy. Gao is excited as he has heard that by acquiring this certificate one can get extra 30 marks at college level entrance exam. Gao has also acquired a free excellent grade monster and its ID card as well. Also, he has managed to secure an excellent relationship with Chang'an's director Feng Su. Then a flashback is shown in which Gao is having a meeting with Feng Su. Mr. Feng requests Gao to represent Chang'an City in the World Monster Breeder Tournament. He adds that the city has a few talented breeders and because of that they are unable to perform well. However, if Gao participates this time, then the city has an excellent chance of winning. Feng adds that since the catastrophe hit the earth, there is no age restriction for participation. Elderly, middle ages, young adults, and teens all can participate from the starting line. Feng then confirms whether Gao is willing to participate in the competition. At first, Gao is a little hesitant and doesn't answer right away. Mr. Feng says that a few competitors are able to acquire a consolation prize of 10,000 credits. However, there is no pressure on Gao. If he's not interested, then it's okay. However, Gao springs up and says that there is nothing like pressure, as with huge pressure comes huge responsibility, so it is his responsibility to win this competition. Gao decides to take part in the tournament. At present, Gao thinks whether it is necessary to take part in the tournament because it seems troublesome to him. Dummy is standing behind him and all the bus passengers point at it and say that it's a super rare ghoul-type monster. One can see its bones very clearly. Soon a young man approaches Dummy and thinks about what will happen if he pulled one of its hair strands. As soon as the boy touches Dummy, his hands and then his whole body is entangled with some strange red threads. However, Gao is completely unaware of the scene that is being created behind him. All he's thinking about the 10,000 credits. Dummy has also entangled the mouth of that boy as well and is staring at him menacingly. The boy is very much terrified. Instantly, Dummy releases the boy and stands as if nothing has happened. Gao turns to Dummy and says that for Dazzy and Dummy he has to take part in the competition because both his pet monsters have huge appetites. Gao also praises himself for being young and handsome and immensely talented. After climbing off the bus, Gao decides to look for Sister Tang. Suddenly, Dummy pushes him aside. At first, Gao is unable to understand, but then he sees Dazzy standing in front of them. A very fat Dazzy it is. Soon Tang comes looking for him and a puzzled Gao points at Dazzy and asks Tang what's going on. Tang answers that she made Dazzy super healthy and fit. However, it seemed like overnutrition to Gao. Tang then asks Gao about his exam and he replies that it went fine as for a normal guy. He met a monster who had tried to get evolved 6 times earlier. Gao tells her how he successfully evolved it and was then awarded an intermediate certificate from the Monster Breeder Association. Also, the director of the association insists on gifting him with this evolved monster. At first, Tang is unable to believe, but then she happily congratulates Gao that he's really progressing well. He then asks Tang that why monster breeders have such high status. Tang replies that a monster's breeder familiar, no matter how much you have trained, remains a non-ego. By non-ego it means belonging to an unknown universe, so a single sniper or bullet could easily threaten the lives of the monster breeders. That's why apart from familiars, monster breeders have some other ways of defense. Tang offers Gao a training session. A strip is shown named the Secret Familiar Technique, which Gao is practicing currently. Through this method, one can perform damage transfer from one's body to his familiar's body, although it has range restriction and can only be activated by a familiar. However, through it, the defense power of a familiar surpasses that of humans. Also, a familiar will gain extra health and defense. However, it is equally advantageous for Gao as well because after learning it, it feels as if Dazzy and Gao are tied up together by an invisible string. Gao then calls it a day and suddenly finds Dazzy behind him. Gao blurts out how come Dazzy has become so plump. Gao mocks that Dazzy is actually a centipede, but currently, he looks like a purple pig. Gao then asks Dummy to bring a mirror and then asks Dazzy to check its reflection. Dazzy is a little ashamed. Dazzy then lies down on the ground and plays dead. However, Gao tells him not to pretend but to exercise for a few days so that he could lose all the extra fat. When Dazzy will successfully lose the fat, then Gao will evolve him. After evolving, Dazzy will acquire flying capabilities, and Gao doesn't want a fat flying centipede. The next day, at Chang'an City Central, Gao reaches the place where Tang has called him for a meeting. Gao apologizes Tang for being a little late. However, Tang shrugs it off. Tang is grateful to Gao, as he has agreed to work in her shoddy company despite being an intermediate monster breeder. Tang then takes him inside the building and says she had opened a small monster breeding company with the help of a partner. She even invested a big sum of money in it. But the person was fraud who took her money and ran away. Not only that, he even took all the monster breeders with him. However, Gao didn't pay any attention to what Tang is saying. In fact, he is thinking of something else in his mind. Gao tells Tang that the location of the company is not as bad as he thought it would be. Tang says that the place is on rent. However, since the monster breeders were poached, the business has been slow as well. However, Gao feels that Tang's behavior is somewhat fishy that day. Tang then takes Guy inside and informs him that their studio is on the 3rd floor. Tang then offers Gao to work with her and she assures him that it won't affect his studies at all. He'll get an off on weekends. The job of monster training is very simple and less challenging, and also Hell is awarded a good salary package. However, Gao questions Tang. Since she could afford a handsome salary, then why hasn't hired another monster breeder? Tang replies that hiring breeders is not an issue. However, they should abide by the rules of the association. Gao ponders that a lavish office is in the busiest area and also super good handling of familiars along super huge pay. If the employer was other than Tang, then he would have thought that he or she is trying to drag him into some mess. However, this is Tang and he has known her for the last 3 years. And as an orphan, she has taken really good care of her. Otherwise, he would have a very challenging livelihood. He trusts Tang that she wouldn't do any harm to him. Also, he would be able to earn some extra money. However, Tang has some suspicious plans which are not revealed at the moment. The lift doors open apart and they meet a girl on the 3rd floor named Quan. Tang introduces Quan to Gao and tells him that Quan is a receptionist and she would show him around. Tang excuses herself and leaves. Quan then proceeds with the registration process of Gao. Quan is in awe of Gao as he's very young and has already acquired an intermediate pass. It seems to Quan that Miss Tang has trapped him with her lies. Quan tells him that his registration has been complete. If he wants to apply as an intermediate breeder, then he has to prove himself, as Studio's reputation is attached to his. Gao questions her what is the meaning of all this. Suddenly a man barges in and bellows that this means whether Gao is capable of applying at this studio. He says that intermediate breeders charge 3 times more, so he has a monster, and he's ready to pay 10 times more. Gao says that since this is his first assignment, so 3 times is enough. The person says that then Gao is ready to heal his monster. However, Gao says what's the rush? Firstly, he would like to check out his monster. The person then takes out a box, and in that box is a small monster that has an injury in its stomach and is bleeding badly. An interface pops up in front of Gao which shows the details about the monster. The monster's name is Purple Electric Rat of level 19. The monster hasn't evolved completely. It's suffering from mild injury and its weakness is mud attribute. Then a danger sign appears, showing that the monster is in evolving process. Please settle. Gao confronts the man that what did he make the poor creature eat to make his condition like this. The man confesses that since he wanted to evolve it, for that purpose he fed it with blood jade Ganoderma mushroom. Kindly heal it. The man begs Gao. Gao ponders that the rat is already going through an evolution process. It's just that it is suffering from the conflicting blood attribute and electric attribute, which in turn resulted in a mishap. For that purpose, Gao thinks that now he has to complete the evolution process. Gao then reads from the interface about the required materials for the evolution process. Put shadow fruit, scarlet maple pit, and golden lightning leaves. The ingredients should be pounded in fine powder. The powder should be boiled and then 1 blood bat monster core crystal is added. Thus, by following guidelines, Gao would be able to turn the conflict into complementary healing, and the purple rat would be fully evolved. He then asks Quan to provide him with the required materials as soon as possible. Gao then clearly tells the man that all these materials are being bought by his monster, so whatever the price would be, the man has to cover all the expenses. The man agrees to pay as he's concerned about his pet's recovery. Gao then confirms that the red wound is actually a side effect of that blood mushroom. Gao then takes the monster to a room and before starting the treatment wears safety gloves. Soon he puts all the materials in a vessel and puts it to boil and is about to use a knife for the rat. To the man's horror, he confirms with Gao whether that was the way to cure his monster. Gao asks him to trust him fully. Gao then drops the rat into the boiling vessel and stirs it with a ladle. The man shrieks in horror and Gao offers him a spoonful of the liquid and says that would he like to taste this rat soup as it is full of energy. Gao then says that he was just joking and asks the man to glance at the vessel. The man heaves a sigh of relief because the little monster was floating peacefully in the vessel. Gao explains the monster is being given a medicinal bath and that when the medicine is heated, its effectiveness is increased. He then covers the vessel and says that it has to be boiled for 10 minutes more. The man ponders that Chang'an City has 2 high-ranked monster breeders and all are big shots, so it's practically impossible to make an appointment with them. He has no other option than Gao Peng. Even he is an intermediate monster breeder. However, currently he has to stay calm. But if something happened to his monster, he won't let it go unsettled. 10 minutes pass and the man impatiently asks Gao to check out his monster to avoid overboiling. Gao asks him to calm down and says that a few moments more to go. Then suddenly the cover of the vessel starts shaking violently. The vessel then explodes. Gao checks inside and sees that the whole medicine has been absorbed by the beast. However, the beast is still unconscious. But soon the monster opens its eyes and starts bouncing around the room, throwing purple light everywhere. The man shouts in delight that his monster has finally evolved. The monster creates a ruckus around the room which makes Quan shout at it that it's destroying everything. However, Gao smiles and an interface pops in front of him showing the new details of the evolved monster. The name of the monster is Purple Electric Blood Mouse, and has blood or electric attributes. Gao congratulates the man that he has hit the jackpot because his monster's grade is a perfect 20. Gao advises the man to breed it more so that it reaches from the elite to the advanced level. The person then apologizes for his previous behavior and shows deep gratitude towards Gao Peng. However, the latter gives him the bill and asks the man to pay his service charges and also the damages done by the monster in his office. The man readily agrees to pay all the bills. Gao then turns towards Quan and gives her a list. He then asks her to provide him with those materials on the list and send them to his house and she could cut the charges from his pay. The man then asks if he has one more familiar, if would he like to check it as well. The man then asks Gao to fix an appointment for the next day according to Gao's convenience. Gao apologizes and says that the next day he's busy so he is not available. The man insists that money is not an issue, as he can pay 3 times. However, Gao says that the next day he has classes at school so that's why he's not available. The man is astonished that Gao is still taking classes despite his standards. Is he taking some special classes through an association, or some master is passing his legacy to him? Gao smirks and says he's talking about regular senior high 3rd grade classes. Gao then calls it a day as he has to finish a lot of homework that he has to finish that day. This greatly stuns the man and Quan, who didn't think that Gao was a mere college student. Quan thinks that a few days ago Sister Tang has bought this place for a very price, just to fire all the monster breeders. She even told Quan to keep it a secret from Gao. Quan just thought that it was a plaything of the wealthy. However, she was not expecting the actual power show from Gao's side. Tang is sitting on a couch and behind her is a gigantic chameleon-like monster. She's admiring a small yellow ball-like crystal and says that it's a very good quality core crystal ball. She asks her monster to send the ball to Gao's place. The monster then reaches Gao's place and drops the crystal ball on the windowsill. The ball then drops inside the house from the window and is spotted by Daisy, who's about to swallow it. Dummy tries to call Daisy loudly, which makes Daisy jump with terror and swallows the crystal ball. Gao is standing outside the building and is holding a bag, carrying supplies for Dummy. Gao thinks that the supplies are enough for Dummy for at least a month. He further adds that Dummy is at a perfect grade currently. If he continues upgrading, he'll reach epic grade. Gao has only heard of such monsters on television and in books. It would have been a miracle if Gao acquires such a perfect quality monster. However, at this stage, it's necessary that Dummy gets good nutrition so that after some time, Gao can start its evolution process again. However, it's very difficult to evolve Daisy because Gao would be needing at least a level 10 monster core crystal in order to get Daisy evolved. Even if he is able to find the crystal, it would be impossible for Gao to buy it. Suddenly he hears someone shouting from his home window. Gao immediately recognizes the voice, which belongs to Daisy. Something has gone terribly wrong. Without wasting any time, Gao rushes toward his apartment. Gao finds Daisy rolling on the floor in utter uneasiness. An interface pops up in front of Gao, which shows that the monster's name is Purple-Backed Yellow-Clawed Centipede, which is an evolving process. However, the monster's quality is still ordinary. The second interface informs Gao that the centipede has taken a large amount of blood and flesh of the lightning badger centipede with the monster's crystal core, because of the same centipede species and in the same evolutionary direction. The evolution process of the monster has started. However, Gao is stunned that how did Daisy acquire such an expensive crystal core? Is somebody playing a game with him? Gao feels someone is observing him secretly, and Gao recognizes immediately that it's his sister Tang. He confronts her and that it was she who gave Daisy the crystal core. Tang affirms. Gao questions her why did she take such a crucial step. She should have asked him before taking any step. However, Tang shrugs it off and says that she has just come to return him his bags full of supplies that he left in the middle of the road. She however complains that how come he bought so many supplies with only his 2-day salary. She then bids him farewell, advises him to rest and leaves immediately, while Gao keeps on calling her name. Then Gao slaps Daisy on its head and calls him a glutton, who eats everything that comes on its way. However, now Gao doesn't have any choice but to evolve Daisy. Gao then searches his bags and throws away useless stuff. Then he finds a purple herb called mid-ranged purple poison flower. If it is ground to form a potion, then this would help Daisy evolve. Gao then grinds the flower and makes Daisy drink it. Soon lightning flames emit from Daisy's body and Daisy evolves magnificently. An interface pops up in front of Daisy, and the evolved monster's name is Purple-Backed Lightning Centipede of level 9 and of epic quality. Gao is elated because he didn't know that evolving Daisy would be so easy. Suddenly Daisy falls to the ground unconscious, worrying Dummy. Gao says that normally both Dummy and Daisy don't get along so well. However, in times like these, Dummy is super caring about Daisy. However, Gao assures it that Daisy is healthy and hearty, only a little tired. He then lauds Dummy for showing kindness towards Daisy and presents him with a bunch of pine needles and says that he has especially gotten it for Dummy. However, Dummy doesn't like the taste of those needles. However, Gao asks it finishes off those needles as he has evolved a few days ago, so he has to eat something nutritious. However, in a few days, he'll find something else for Dummy to eat. After a while, Daisy regains consciousness and finds out that both Gao and Dummy are dozing off. Daisy then brings a blanket and covers Gao with it and cuddles with him to sleep. Tang is secretly observing all this and says to herself that is this calm before the storm, as Gao Peng has to grow up quickly. At Gao's school, the school principal is shouting at an officer in his room. The principal says that he cannot allow at any cost the enrollment of monsters at the school. It's because there are children studying at the school and those monsters could severely harm those children, as they are no monster breeders. The principal adds that they are answerable to each and every parent. However, the officer defends himself by saying that the children are still considered children due to safer times. However, in ancient times, they'd already be considered grown-ups and would be wielding weapons in order to protect the country. The principal, still unconvinced, asks the officer whether the situation is very tense nowadays. The officer replies that they are researching and developing new techniques. However, the rate of progress is not very convincing, and a day will come when they all won't prepare to face the arriving threats. Then it would be too late for all of them. The principal still argues his point that what about the students' safety? To which the officer replies that the monsters they would be bringing to school will be safe. However, there is no 100% guarantee anywhere. The principal then agrees. In Gao's class, a student admirably tells Gao that he has become very popular because of Gao's clearing monster breeder's exam. Gao inquires how did he know. The student shows him the news in which it's mentioned that Gao is the youngest intermediate monster breeder in Chang'an City and has broken all records. The other students also hear the news and crowd Gao. All the students start praising Gao for his achievements. Gao also hears about Lai Zigong, whose mother made him study like hell when she heard about Gao's achievements. The previous student wants a presumptuous favor from Gao. However, Gao doesn't encourage it as according to Gao the request would both of them in a tight spot. Soon teacher Mirong arrives in the class and bellows that she has something special to announce. From now onwards all schools around the world would be going through some urgent reforms. She says that the second grade of senior high has to take an additional familiar course, with a new category of special admission, Monster Trainer Cadets. This is a collaboration between the Education Department and the military forces. The armed forces training will start from the following afternoon. So if any student is interested in becoming a Monster Trainer Cadet, must sign up with the teacher after the class. The whole class starts chattering about the so soon reforms in the training sessions. The teacher then summons Gao Peng and asks him to come outside as she has some important matter to discuss with him. Teacher Mirong asks Gao that it has come to her knowledge that he has acquired an intermediate level monster breeder's certificate. So she wants him to address the students and encourage them. However, Gao politely refuses as public speaking is not his thing, but he wants to apply as a monster trainer's cadet to the teacher's surprise. However, she advises him to refrain from applying because it won't be beneficial to him. She adds that his grades are exceptional along with the intermediate certificate, so he should apply to the military academy if he excels in the course, so he would be admitted to the military academy. However, while training in the academy, if he feels that he still wants to be a trainer cadet, he can apply directly for that position. The teacher and Gao stare out of the window and see that two military officers are dragging a monster inside the school. Gao expresses his gratitude towards his teacher as she shows so much concern for him. However, he's adamant about being a monster trainer. Entering the military academy and then applying for the trainer would be too time-consuming. Gao wants to learn more from real-life combats and grow even stronger at a quicker pace. Also, he should be able to take part in both exams. The teacher encourages him to follow his own path as he has already decided on his career. In the afternoon, many students are excited to take part in the selection round. All students gather on the ground and then a military tank stops by and a burly officer comes out of it. The burly officer welcomes all the students and praises their chivalry. He then asks the students whether all of them think they would end up becoming monster trainers. He warns that without strong beliefs and iron will, they won't be able to face Owled Monster, let alone fight it. The students are disturbed as they think the military officer is looking down upon them. However, he shows them a gigantic wolf-like creature controlled by two officers. Its mouth is also tied up with strong ropes, so that it couldn't attack anybody. Soon the officer orders his subordinate to set up the targeted 10 cm thick Type 3 armor plate. After it is done, he releases the monster. The monster follows his orders and rushes towards the plate, and hits it so hard that the plate breaks into two parts. All the students are taken aback, because the steel plate was so thick and strong. So how come a monster broke it into two with just one blow? The instructor says that was the true power of a trained monster. The students may have to face all monsters of such type, and at that time the monster's target will not be the steel plate but the fighter's body, so the students have to work very hard while training. The instructor clearly mentions that only those who want to pursue the course really hard can stay. The rest can leave. On hearing this, most of the students leave the venue with bowed heads dejectedly. The instructor shouts at them how their heads are lowered as they are not doing anything wrong, so they don't need to be embarrassed. They must concentrate on their studies, and by doing that they could be equally successful. Then the instructor turns around and looks maniacally at the remaining students, that since they have chosen to stay for the course, so now they cannot back off at any cost. Otherwise they have to face consequences. After training, Gao reaches home and is super tired. However, his pets Dumbai and Dazzy rush toward him and ask for food. Gao then looks at the pantry but finds it empty. He tries to search it for food. However, no luck. He then bellows where all the pine needles went, although he saved the needles for later. Dazzy defends itself and says that he hasn't touched anything. It then points towards Dummy, that this glutton might have eaten it. However, Gao assures Dummy that the next time if it feels hungry, it should tell him and Gao would arrange something for it. Gao then tries to calculate food expenses of both his pets. He says to himself that everything is going according to the plan. Dummy is eating well, and after some time, he would be able to perform evolution on Dummy. However, in order to evolve Dazzy, many materials are required which are quite costly as well, so it won't be possible to evolve Dazzy at the moment. Gao then reaches school and is surprised to find that many students have brought their monsters with them. Gao thinks that the whole school has turned into a zoo and all the monsters are fighting among themselves. Some monsters are trying to roam here and there, while some are trying to climb trees. The most amusing one is the white big fat pig that has perched in front of the school gate and is not at all budging. Gao tries to reason with its owner that although her monster is really gate, it's unethical blocking the school gate. The girl says that when she bought the monster it was so small and cute, and now slowly and gradually it has become a giant. Soon one more monster appears along with its trainer. The trainer asks Gao what's the commotion all about. Gao tells him about the white monster blocking the school gate. The trainer then releases his pet monster named Silver Moon, which is a wolf-like creature, and asks it to deal with the white pig. The wolf makes a scary face and the white pig is terrified at the sight of that wolf and flees. Instructor says, "Problem is solved." The instructor then tells the students that today they would learn to give commands to their monsters. This is very important because no matter how powerful your monster is, if it doesn't obey your command, then it is useless. The officer continues that in order to train a monster, one must know about its abilities and habits. This is how one could give commands to his monster. He explains that he used to feed his monster Silver Moon all by himself and also spent time playing and sleeping together with it. That's why it now relies on him and follows his instructions. The instructor says that a wolf-like monster uses its claws and teeth to attack its prey. Like the monster on the previous day used its claws to cut the steel plate into two, the monster today would use its teeth to destroy a stone. The instructor then gives a demo and throws a stone in the air. The Silver Moon wolf runs to grab it before the stone falls to the ground. It grabs the stone in its mouth and crushes it so hard between its teeth. That breaks it into two pieces. Gao and other strengths are stunned to see such a bite strength. The instructor explains that the strengths of familiars differ from each other, like they could be either defensive, aggressive, assisted, therapeutic, and field controlling. Some familiars have more than one strength. The instructor says that now it's the students' turn to train as demonstrations are all over. However, he suggests that they should start with simple materials like for bite strength training. Wooden blocks should be used instead of stones. They have also prepared large numbers training materials, so those who have already decided on their training paths must come and select their materials. Gao keeps on pondering that where else can Dazzy be strengthened. Increasing self-defense would be worthwhile, as they signed a blood contract. Whatever injury Gao would suffer would be automatically transferred to Dazzy, so how its defense could be improved. He then checks out the apes that are handling the boxes and term them as aggressive. Gao then remembers reading about an ape called Boxing Ape, whose thinning hair couldn't help it defending itself. Therefore soon it was born. Its parents started training it to use its body for hitting trees repeatedly. Soon when hitting the trees stopped hurting it, it then started to hit rocks or cliffs instead. The boxing ape kept on practicing it until its cured string became tougher day by day. After it grew up, its tough skin and scars integrated into armor like a shield. So at that moment it wouldn't get an injury even if it hit a cliff. Gao thinks that he could use that training path to improve Dazzy's defense system. He then chooses Dazzy's training material and calls the lazy monster for training. He explains to Dazzy that according to THSI training material, it would suffer a bit, but it's best for his future. It's better to suffer for a few minutes than suffer for the whole life. Gao then takes out a gigantic hammer and is about to beat Dazzy with it, when the frantic monster decides to run away. However, Gao runs after him carrying the big hammer. In the end, Dazzy is caught. However, Gao's arm gets dislocated. The next morning, Gao decides to sleep a little longer as he has no training session that day. However, his pets are getting restless as they are hungry and want some breakfast. Poor Gao heads along the kitchen to make them some. Gao ponders sleepily that his pets are getting leveled up. However, he's the one who's suffering the most, as not only his speed and strength are increasing, but he has also become more skilled in flipping pancakes. However, Gao is not all regretting giving extra meals to Dazzy because the latter has grown one whole size up and has reached level 10. Demi has also leveled up. However, his salary is getting depleted day by day as it has become very expensive to feed those two heavy eaters. Gao receives a call from Mr. Liu Senlin, a representative of some Blue Shield company, to discuss a deal that would greatly benefit him. Then in his office, Gao has a meeting with Mr. Liu, who's the manager of Blue Shield Protection Company. He makes an offer to Gao to become a monster breeder consultant. However, Gao asks him why he has been chosen, as there are other intermediate level breeders along with 2 advanced level breeders, and their abilities would be much higher than Gao's. Mr. Liu calls Gao a humble being and says that the 2 advanced level breeders are unapproachable, as one of them is Director Chen from the Monster Breeders Association, and his hands are already full from running the association. The other one is Gu Xianlin, the number 1 monster breeder who holds a position in the government as a full-time monster breeder consultant. However, among intermediate breeders, Gao is the best according to Mr. Liu. However, Gao places some conditions in front of Mr. Liu. The first one being that he has school from Monday to Friday, so he shouldn't be disturbed on those days except in the case of an emergency. Secondly, he's okay being a monster breeder consultant, rather than an exclusive monster breeder under their company. He assures Mr. Liu that he won't tell their competitors anything. Mr. Liu then offers a contract for Gao to sign it. On reading the contract, Gao feels something is not right. However, when he reads it thoroughly, it seems like a clear and simple contract, hoping to bring more benefits to Gao. Gao quickly signs the contract, and soon Mr. Ma, whose purple electric rat Gao has cured earlier, arrives at his office. However, something is not right as Mr. Liu calls his uncle and questions his decision for hiring an inexperienced Gao Peng. This time, Mr. Ma has brought his second familiar, which is a begonia, Semperflorin's sprite. Mr. Ma wants to evolve this pretty flower plant in order to participate in the Flower King contest, a beauty contest of flowers. Gao thinks Ma is unbelievable because the plant he has brought is therapeutic and the silly guy wants to win a crown for it. But all Ma wants its flower to be happy and wants a nice start for it. As usual, Gao charges triple for the evolution and asks Quan to bring the necessary materials. Swiftly, Quan arranges the material and Gao asks both of them to wait outside while he's working. Gao prepares a serum and injects it into the flora. Soon the petite flora evolves into a magnificent flower queen plant, and Mr. Ma hugs and thanks Gao with great emotion. And that's how the first part of this manhwa ends. Well guys, if you like this video and you want a second part, comment below with the word school. Also subscribe to the channel, hit the bell and like the video. But most important, leave a comment. Until the next video.